Hey, welcome to this mini course. In this course, I will share top 30 most basic Angular interview questions. These questions are like the minimum eligibility criteria for the Angular interview. Attending an interview without knowing these basic questions can be very risky. Even if you are new to Angular, no problem. All these questions will cover all the basics of Angular with coding examples and very simple definitions which are easy to remember for interviews. Hey, my name is Happy and I am a full stack developer with more than 13 years of experience, and I have given and taken more than 100 interviews in my career. Once you complete this course, then I will post part 2 of the interview series which will contain next level Angular questions. If you want this video, press like and subscribe button. This is the structure of this course. First we will cover some basic questions, then questions on components and modules, then data binding, directives, decorator and pipes, and at last some other questions. So without wasting time, let's start from the basic questions. And yes, if at any point of time you think any question is too easy for you, then you can increase the speed of the video. Here is the first interview question of Angular. What is Angular? I know maybe you already know the answer, but I will answer it in a different and more elaborative way. By the end of the answer, you will be familiar with all basic terms used in Angular. See, this is the way web application works. Client with the help of browser will send the request to server, and then server will get the data from the database and respond back. Now your browser understands 3 languages: CSS, HTML and JavaScript. Server languages are C#, Java, PHP and many more. Now for building large and structured web applications, we need frameworks around these languages. For example, in server-side case, we have .NET Framework for C#, Spring for Java and Laravel for PHP language. Similarly, at client side, we have Angular framework. Why we need framework for client side? Because nowadays client side code is increasing and increasing. So we need a framework to structure the client side code also. Now here is the conclusion and definition of Angular. Angular is a component-based framework for building structured, scalable and single-page web applications for client side. We will discuss questions on component in upcoming questions. I already explained the importance of structured applications. Now every application should be scalable. That means it should open and flexible for any enhancements or upgradation in near future. That is scalable. Now what is single page application? Let's quickly see it. In single page application, we only have one page, and the body content of that page will be updated as per the request. Let me quickly show you this. See, here is a website. Now when I am clicking to the navigation, then this reload icon is turning to cross and it is reloading. Page is reloading here and redirecting to a different page, which means that here we have multiple pages and therefore it's not a single page application. Now let's see the example of single page application. See, here is youtube.com, the most popular one. Here when I am navigating, then this reload icon is not turning into cross, which means we have a single page here and only the internal components of the same, or we can say this page, are updating. But the whole page will never reload. This is the example of single page application. Here is the question. What are Angular advantages, or why we need Angular? You know the answer, right? Angular builds single page applications. But as an interviewer, then I will ask you another question. We can make single page application in plain JavaScript also. Then why we need Angular then? So by the end of the answer, you will be knowing a detailed answer about the advantages of Angular and how to implement those advantages in Angular. That also you will come to know. So watch this. First advantage is, with Angular, it is relatively simple to build single page application. Yes, we can develop single page application with JavaScript also, but it is relatively very simple to build single page application in Angular with the help of component based architecture, and that is the reason. Second benefit of Angular is Angular help us to make flexible and structured client applications. Nowadays, client applications are getting bigger and bigger, and we have to properly structure them. Otherwise, later it will be difficult to support, maintain, and scale them. Angular provides proper structure because it's OOPS friendly and you can create classes and interfaces in it. If you are from Java or C# background, you must be knowing the importance of OOPS, right? Same applicable in Angular also. If you are not familiar with OOPS, no problem. Later I will cover some questions on OOPS also. Next simple advantage is Angular is cross-platform and open source, meaning it can work with any operating system like Windows, Linux or any other, and also it is free to use. So that is the next advantage. Then reusable code is the next advantage of Angular. It means you can create code at one place and then use it at many places, which is a very good programming practice. Services in Angular is the way to create reusable code. Later I will cover questions on services in detail. And the last advantage is Angular is good for testability. Unit testing is a very critical part in our applications. So Angular provides spec.cs files to cover it. We will also cover a separate question on this. Now you know what are the advantages and how you can achieve them by using what feature of Angular. For any queries on this question, please comment and I will surely respond. Now this question is related with Angular history and everyone likes history. What is the difference between Angular and Angularjs? By the end of this video, you will understand why Google replaced Angularjs with Angular. Here is the interesting short story. Google first released Angularjs in 2010 and then they realized that there are some shortcomings of it and therefore they rewrite the whole framework and named it Angular. They removed JS from the name because JS stands for JavaScript and now the new version can use TypeScript also. So the name of the new version is Angular only. Now in 2 minutes I will show you some main differences between Angular and Angularjs. First difference is Angularjs only supports JavaScript, whereas Angular supports both JavaScript and TypeScript. One benefit of this is you can see errors in TypeScript at compile time only, which is not there in the JavaScript. Second benefit is TypeScript support classes interfaces, which is good way of programming, but JavaScript don't support them. Second difference is Angular framework has a model view controller architecture, whereas Angular has a component based architecture, and component based architecture is much faster than MVC architecture. Then Angularjs does not have CLI tool, but Angular has CLI tool, with which you can easily create components, services and other things with the templates. The next difference and advantage is Angularjs does not use dependency injection, whereas Angular uses dependency injection, and dependency injection is a very good design pattern and I will cover a separate question on this soon. Then next difference is Angularjs does not support mobile browsers but Angular support mobile browser. And the last advantage or the difference you can say is Angularjs is not so fast. That's why Google replaced it with Angular. Angular is much faster because of its data binding technique and the component based architecture. You can see Angular is like an upgrade over Angularjs. In upcoming questions, we will see questions on components, TypeScript, CLI tool and dependency injection in Angular. If you have any query about this question, then please ask me and I will be very happy to answer your queries. Here is a small question. What is NPM? Yes, you know it. It is Node Package Manager. But how it is related to Node and Angular both? Why we install Node for Angular? By the end of this video, you will know this. NPM is an online repository, or you can say library, for Node.js projects. Then what is the connection with Angular then? Actually, Google only has developed Node.js and Angular both. So they keep the libraries NPM common for both. That is why you have to install Node.js before started working on Angular, because Node.js will provide you NPM. And NPM provides you libraries, and those libraries are required for Angular development. Now the question is, what is NPM? NPM, or Node Package Manager, is an online repository from where you can get thousands of free libraries which can be used in your Angular project. So these libraries can be used for Node development also and can be used for Angular development also. See, here in the VS Code, this node_modules folder is provided by Node Package Manager only. The node_modules folder is used to save all downloaded packages from NPM in your computer. For example, you create some modules in Angular projects, right? Similarly, NPM gives you many ready-made modules which are present in this folder and can be used in your Angular project. So this is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, then ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is CLI tool? I will not just answer it, but I will show you also. See, in VS Code we have this terminal window, and that is the CLI tool. What this window will do? From here you can generate components, services, modules, etc. for your Angular application. So the definition is, CLI is a command line interface tool that you use to initialize and develop Angular applications. For example, it is used in creating new project, creating new components, etc. Here we are creating the component test component, and the CLI will generate the scaffold, or we can say the whole component template for us. Let me show you how. See, write the same command and press enter here, and the component started generating. After generation, see here inside the source then app folder, we have this new component, test component, and all the files are automatically generated by the CLI tool only. That is the magic of the CLI tool. It will create the whole component structure for you. So that is the answer of this question. Hope you got it. Here is the question. What is TypeScript? What are the advantages of TypeScript over JavaScript? After watching this video, you can easily tell any interviewer that why we need TypeScript in this world. Let's understand with the help of a diagram. See, here we have TS as the TypeScript, and you can see TypeScript have type system, enums, generics, interfaces, and many more things. But JavaScript do not have those things. So this is the most important advantage of TypeScript over JavaScript. But the thing is, browser do not understand TypeScript code. So Angular compile or convert all the TypeScript code in JavaScript first and then run it on browser. Because browser do not understand TypeScript, and it understands JavaScript only. Now let's see all the points about TypeScript. What is TypeScript and why we need TypeScript? See, TypeScript is a strongly typed language while JavaScript is loosely typed language. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, which means all the JavaScript code is also a valid TypeScript code. TypeScript has object-oriented features like classes, interfaces, etc. Whereas JavaScript do not have object-oriented features. TypeScript detect errors at compile time, whereas JavaScript detect errors at runtime only. Now let me show you the reasons behind all these points. first point is TypeScript is a strongly typed language. See, this is a TypeScript file strongly typed.ts. Here we have declared a string with let keyword and then assigned a value to it. This type defining at the time of declaration of variable makes TypeScript strongly typed. Now I will show how JavaScript is not strongly typed and how it is loosely typed. First, compile and convert this TypeScript file to JavaScript file. Open terminal, type tsc strongly typed.ts strongly typed.js and press enter. This will create a strongly typed.js file, which is the JavaScript version of the TypeScript file. See, here in JavaScript version, the variable is not defined as a string. That means it can be anything, which means it is loosely typed. If in future we will do this, we will type some value equal to some value multiply 5. Then it will not show any error, and this will lead to many runtime errors in future. Whereas if we do the same thing in TypeScript, let's copy this line and paste it in TypeScript file. See, it is showing error, which is an excellent thing. Developer can solve this error at compile time only. So this is the meaning of strongly typed. Meaning in TypeScript we have to provide the type of variable at the starting only. But it is not required in JavaScript. Second point is TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Let me explain this. See, here is the JavaScript code inside the TypeScript file main.ts, right? Now let me compile this to JavaScript. Open terminal, type tsc main.ts main.js and press enter. Here is the file created main.js, right? See, the code of both of the files are same. That means valid JavaScript code is also valid TypeScript code. And in addition to that, TypeScript provides some features like classes, interfaces over JavaScript, which means TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Third point is TypeScript has object-oriented features. See, this is test.ts file, and we have a class and a method 1 inside it. Now, who all are from C# or Java background? For them, it will be very easy to understand this code. If I will convert this TypeScript file to JavaScript file, let me do it. Open terminal, type tsc test.ts test.js, press enter. Then this JavaScript test.js file which is generated, is the code here is slightly complex, or not slightly but a very complex to understand. That's why we say TypeScript has object-oriented features which are easy to understand. Now last point is TypeScript detect errors at compile time. This I already explained in strongly typed language point. See, in strongly typed.ts file, it is showing the compile time errors. How great this feature is in TypeScript, right? Whereas if you do the same thing in JavaScript, here no compile time errors. Although this is not possible, this code is not possible. You cannot multiply a number with a string. So this is the disadvantage of JavaScript. TypeScript detect errors at compile time and JavaScript don't. So here I covered all the main advantages of TypeScript over JavaScript. If you have any queries about this question, then please post me in the comment section. Now we will start the second section of this video, which is components and modules. And here is the list of interview questions which we are going to cover in this section. So let's start with the first question. Here is the interview question. What are components in Angular? After watching this video, you can give a detailed answer about the components to the interviewer. So let's start. Suppose we have a website interviewhappy.com. Now here we will have menu component where all the menu items are present, login component where user can enter username and password, Then product list component where all the products are displayed. So this is the idea of the component. In the single page there can be many components, and based on the request the components will be updated. So the page will remain same, but the components will be replaced or refreshed time to time. Now the definition of the components is: components are the most basic UI building block of an Angular app. Let me show you in the code also. See, here inside the app folder we have 4 files. These 4 files together will make a single component. These files are CSS file, HTML file, spec.ts file and the component.ts file. .css file used for keeping the CSS code for the component. See the CSS code for the component here. Then .html file used for modifying the HTML template of the component. You will see all the HTML code here for the component. Then the spec file is used for writing unit tests for your component. .ts means it will accept both TypeScript and JavaScript language. Then we have the most important file, that is component.ts file. Component.ts is the file which link all other component files like CSS, HTML, all it will link together. See, this is the way to decorate the component. And setting the metadata. Metadata are selector, template URL which is the HTML file and the style URLs which is the CSS file. We will discuss the selector in detail later. When you will generate a new Angular project, then Angular will create first component for you like this only. So this is the default component provided by the Angular framework. So this is the short story of the component. It is a basic building block of Angular application. We will discuss selector, decorator and metadata in upcoming questions. See you in the next question. Here is a short and simple question now. What is selector and template? You might be already know the answer of this question, but let's revise it quickly. Here you can see the app component screenshot. See, the first attribute of component is selector. What is this? The definition is a selector is used to identify each component uniquely into the component tree. For example, in your application you might have hundreds of components. Now to identify them easily, we assign them this unique selector value. So when the single page index.html will load, then this app root tag will be replaced by the app root component HTML. This is selector. Now the next part is what is template. Here is the template URL attribute. This is the URL of the HTML of this particular component, which is app.component.html file. You can also use direct template attribute to write the inline HTML here. For example, you can directly put the HTML code here. Therefore, the one-line answer is a template is a HTML view of an Angular component. This is the answer of this question. Now let's move to the another question. What is module in Angular? What is app.module.ts file? After watching this video, you can explain module to anyone. Let's first see the definition and then explore the module in detail. Module is a place where you can group the components, directives, pipes and services which are related to the application. Now let's see the module code. See, this is our app.module.ts file. When you will create the Angular project, then this file will comes with the project. This file is the root module and we will call it app module also. See, the module is registered by this Ng module decorator. Then inside it we have declarations where we can declare multiple components which can be part of this module. So a module can have multiple components. This app component is the default component of this module. The next thing is imports. With this imports keyword, we can use the services of other modules inside this app module. For example, by default browser module will be present in app module. And as the name suggests, this browser module provides services that are essential to launch and run a browser application. And that's why it is necessary to add this browser module in the app module. So a module can import other modules and then can use their services. If you place this export keyword with any module like this, then that module will be available for import in other modules, otherwise not. After this, we have providers in the modules, which I will explain later in a separate question because it is related to dependency injection and it is slightly complex and I don't want to confuse you right now. Then we have this bootstrap which will set that out of the declared components which component will be bootstrapped. If we have multiple components here, then you can set any one of them as bootstrap. With all this information, we will again repeat the definition. Module is a place where you can group the components, directives, pipes and services which are related to the application. If you are building a small application, then root app module is enough for your application. But if it is a big client-side application, then you might have to create more modules. And there are different types of modules which I will cover in upcoming questions. That's it. If you have any queries about this question, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it. Here is a very good question. How an Angular app gets loaded and started? What are index.html, app root, selector and main.ts file? I will share the theoretical answer first so that you can explain it in the interview and then I will show you the practicality behind it. See, this is the process and just remember that when client sent the request, then it first hit index.html page. Now Angular is used to create single page applications. Index.html file is that single page. Then index.html will invoke main.js file, which is the JavaScript version of main.ts file. So what is main.ts file? Like every other application, main.ts file is the entry point of web app. It compiles the web app and bootstraps the app module to run in the browser. Then app module file will then bootstrap the app component. And then app component or app root component is the HTML which you will see finally in your browser. So this is the theoretical answer and you have to remember the sequence. Now let me give you the proof of above sequence. See, here is the code of index.html file. Here we have this loading string, but when we look at the browser, the string loading is not here. So what happened? Actually, this app root tag is not an HTML tag. It's an Angular component. Let's look at the browser again. Let's inspect here. See, at the end these JS files are there. One of them is main.js. So what happened is when client hit index.html, then Angular CLI load these JS files with the HTML file. And now the main.js, which is the TypeScript version of the main.ts file, will execute. Now let's see the code of main.ts file, what it is exactly doing. Here is the main.ts file. Here the main point is this bootstrap module method, which is right now bootstrapping the app module. We can change this to any other module also here. Then this app module code, we are bootstrapping the app component, which is also called app root component. We can also change this to any other component from the components available in the declaration part. Now let's see the definition of app component. Finally, here you can see that app root tag which was present in index.html file. So that tag now will be replaced with the app.component.html file because this is the HTML file for the app root selector property. So finally the summary is browser will first load index.html page. Then index.html will call main.ts file. Then main.ts will bootstrap app module and then app module will bootstrap app component. And in the browser you will see app component HTML file as the final output. So this is the whole story and that is the answer of this question. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any queries then please ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer them as my name is Happy. What is a bootstrapped component and bootstrapping module? When the Angular web application will start, then the first module launched is the bootstrapped module. And the same is true for bootstrapped component also. Let me show you in the code. When Angular web application will start, then first the single page index.html will be loaded. And this will load main.ts file. And then this will bootstrap the app module. See the bootstrap module function here. See, this app module is the bootstrapping module. We can replace it with any other module. Now what is bootstrapped component? Let's go to the definition of this app module. Here you can see inside a module there can be many components declared like this. Out of these components we can see which will run first. We can set which will run first. That component name we will put here in front of bootstrap property. So now this app component is the bootstrapped component. We can also add multiple components in bootstrap property. For example, if I add header component here, then both of these components together will be bootstrapped component. This is the story of bootstrapped module and component. If you have any queries about this question, then I will be very happy to answer it as my name is Happy. Now we will cover questions from another popular topic, which is data binding. And here is the list of the questions which we are going to cover. So let's start with the first question. Here is a very important question. What is data binding in Angular? First, the definition. Data binding is the way to communicate between your TypeScript code of your component and your HTML view. So in our Angular project, we have our TypeScript code written in app.component.ts file. All the business logic like receiving data from the APIs is written here, right? But after processing the data, we have to display this in the HTML file, which is also called view, right? And Angular provides us this app.component.html template file for displaying this data. Now the question is how to transfer data from TypeScript code to HTML template and then from template to TypeScript code. So for that reason we have data binding technique which does this job of passing data. Now there can be three ways to pass data. From component to HTML template, which is output data. For this we have two data binding techniques, string interpolation and property binding technique. We will discuss them in detail in separate questions. Then from view to component, which is input data. For this we have this event binding technique. And sometimes we need data to travel both sides, for which we have two-way data binding technique. The first three are one-way data binding techniques and the last one is two-way data binding technique. One thing here, HTML template and view are same thing. Also TypeScript code and component are same thing. See, originally component is mix of HTML template, CSS and TypeScript file. But for simplification we mostly say that this app.component.ts file is component. So do not get confused by the name. So this is the four types of data binding technique which we will discuss in upcoming questions. If you have any question on this question, then please ask me in the comment section. What is string interpolation in Angular? Let's check out the theory first. This is the flow of data in case of string interpolation. Data will go from component to view. So the definition of string interpolation is a one-way binding technique that is used to transfer the data from a TypeScript code or component to an HTML template, or we can call it view. Now there are two important things about interpolation. First is string interpolation can work only with string type, not with numbers, not with booleans, or not with any other type. And the second important thing is it is represented inside this double curly braces. Now let me show you the same thing in the code for the string interpolation. Suppose we have this title field in component file and the value is set to first interview. Now we have to transfer this value to view or HTML template file from this component file. So how we can do this? The answer is simple. With the help of string interpolation, like this. Put title inside the double curly braces inside the HTML view. See, now I will check the view in browser and it is present here. That means data is transferred from TypeScript or component code to HTML view. That is short answer of string interpolation data binding technique. Second data binding technique is property binding, which is like a big brother of string interpolation. Let's see that in upcoming question. If you have any queries about this question, so please ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it. What is property binding in Angular? This is 90% similar to string interpolation. See, this is the flow of data in case of property binding. Data will flow from component to view same as string interpolation. The definition of property binding is like TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Similarly, property binding is also a superset of interpolation. It can do whatever interpolation can do. In addition, it can set an element property to a non-string data value like boolean. So string interpolation can only play with strings, but property binding can play with any data type. So this is the difference between string interpolation and property binding also. Now the question is why we need string interpolation. When property binding can do all the things which interpolation can do, then what is the need of interpolation? The answer is because string interpolation syntax is very simple as comparison to property binding implementation. That is why it is included in Angular framework. Let me show you the code of property binding now. See, here is the string interpolation code. Now let me place the property binding code here. Here it is. Both are same things. Both are doing same things. But the first one seems simpler than the second line, right? That is why for string case, which is majority, or I can say 80% of the case is string case only. So that's why we use string interpolation in case of string data binding. But sometimes we have to transfer the boolean value from component to HTML view, which is not possible by interpolation but can be done by property binding. For example, let's put a text box here like this. Now this text box is disabled, can be true or false based on the value received from the component code. We cannot do interpolation code for this is disabled, but we can do this with the help of property binding. Now let me go to the component code and put this is disabled equal to true. Now the template error is gone. See, now we will check the browser and see the text box is disabled here, which is disabled with the help of the property binding. So this is the example of property binding in Angular. I hope you are now you understand when to use interpolation and when to use property binding. If you have any queries about this question, please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is event binding in Angular? This is the flow of data in case of event binding. So when user will do some action like button click or mouse over in the HTML form, then you can catch that action in component file with the help of event binding. These actions are also called events. So the simplest definition is event binding is used to handle the events raised by the user actions like button click. Let me show you the code for event binding. See, here is the interpolation code and then the property binding code. Now we will see the syntax of event binding. See, this is the event binding code in HTML file. This means a button with text click interview will be present on the web page. And when we will click this button, then the click function will be called. This click function is nothing but a simple JavaScript function. And remember the syntax of this event binding. It is round brackets and inside that the event. Apart from click, there are many more mouse and other events. Let me show you. See, all these are events you can use. Now, right now, this function does not exist. That's why this is showing error. Let me create this function in the component file. Now, the error is gone. What this function will do is just log this line on the click of the button. This is just a JavaScript function, nothing much about it. Now let's go to browser and let's see the output. Click the button and then inspect to see the console. See, in the console the output is interview cracked. Now if you want to pass some data also from HTML template to component file, that also is possible with the help of event binding. Suppose this is some data which I will pass as parameters from HTML to component file. Let's go to the component file and inside the function give the parameter names with the data types and finally use them. For now, just add 1 plus 2. Now again go to the browser, click the button again and then see in the console the output is interview cracked and 3. So that is event binding, handling the events created by users. Now if we want to handle the events and then display the data at the same time in the HTML view, for that we have another technique which we will see in next question. If you have any queries about this question, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer as my name is Happy only. Here is a very important interview question in Angular. What is two-way data binding in Angular? If you know this binding, that means you know all the bindings. That's why interviewers ask this question as much as possible. By the end of this video, you will be able to explain two-way data binding to anyone. See, here is the flow. User will input data in some text box or input field in HTML template like this. The data will be passed to component file and then updated data will be passed back to this div or HTML view at the same time. So the definition is, two-way data binding in Angular will help users to exchange data from the view to component and then from component to view at the same time. This is the code format for it. First square brackets and then round brackets and then inside it ng model. Shortly I will give you the reason behind this syntax. Some people will call it banana inside the box also, but personally I don't like that. Anyway, it's up to you to remember it the way you like it. It may be square brackets and then round brackets, or you can say banana inside the box. Now let me show you the code of this two-way binding. This is the code of previous bindings, string interpolation, property binding and event binding. The code of two-way binding is like this. Input ng model inside the round brackets, then square brackets, then property name is name here and then type equal to test. The reason for this syntax is square brackets represent property binding and round bracket represent event binding. So in a way, this two-way binding is the combination of property binding and event binding. So this is the reason behind the syntax. Now right now we are seeing two errors here. One is not accepting this ng model and second, this name property is not defined in component file. To resolve the first error, we have to include form modules in the app module.ts file. Like this, add form modules in the imports. This will automatically import the header for this. Now if you see the template file, the first error is gone. Now for the second error, let's define the name in the component file. Go to the component file and set the property name with the value interview. So it's like this. Now go back to the HTML file. Now no error is here. So here we are able to type any text inside this input control, but at the same time we have to display that in the view also, in the HTML also. For that we will place a div here and put the name property inside the string interpolation. So that's it from the two-way data binding, and now let's see the output in the browser. See, here I am writing something inside the input field and that is parallelly reflecting here in the div. So this is the two-way data binding technique. We are inputting something and parallelly it is reflecting in the output also. With this we covered all the types of data binding. If you have any queries about this question, then please post in the comment section. Now we will cover questions from another popular topic, which is directives. And here is the list of the questions which we are going to cover. So let's start with the first question of directives. What are directives? What are the types of directives? I have broken this question in several small questions so that you can easily understand it. Here is the simplest definition of directive. Directive are classes that add additional behavior to elements in your Angular applications. For example, suppose you have an element button like this. Now the color of this button can be changed by the help of directives like this. Now directives are of many types. Here are the types of directives: structural directives, attribute directives, and component directives. These are all built-in directives which are provided by Angular. You can create and add your own custom directives, but that is a different case. The first one is structural directive. Structural directives change appearance of DOM by adding or remove any elements in it. For example, now suppose here is a list of some weekdays in your web page. Now adding one more item in this list can be done with the help of a structural directive. Ngif, Ng4 and Ng-switch are the types of structural directives. We can discuss this in separate questions later. Now, attribute directives. The definition of attribute directive is: attribute directives change the appearance or behavior of the element. Above, the color change submit button example I gave already is the example of attribute directives only. Ng class and Ng styles are the types of attribute directives, which I will discuss in detail in upcoming questions. Then the last one is component directives. Component directives are the directives with its own templates. It means all the components where you have the HTML template are the types of directives only. So component is a type of directive only. This is the most used directive because components are used to display the first view. So this is the basic understanding of the directives. In upcoming questions, we will see more questions on different types of directives. If you have any question about this question, then please ask me in the comment section. What is Ngif structural directive? Let's first recap the structural directive definition. Structural directives are classes that change appearance of DOM by adding or removing elements. For example, in a list you can add or remove items with the help of structural directives. Now, as per structural directive definition, the Ngif directive is used to add or remove items based on the if condition. Now let me show you in the code how this if condition works. Suppose in the app component we have field array of students with two students here, Harry and Happy. Now this component has this HTML template. Now if you see here, we have a list with two items. Now as per the code, if student.length is greater than 0, then the first list item will be displayed which is 2 students. If student.length is equal to 0, then the second list item will be displayed, which is 0 students. Let's run both the cases. Right now we have 2 students, Harry and Happy. See the output in the browser. It is 2 students. Then let's remove those students from the list. Now go to browser. See, now we have 0 students. So the list items are displaying based on the if condition. So this is the job of ngIf structural directive. It will display items based on the condition written in the if condition. We will see some more structural directives in upcoming questions. What is Ng4 structural directive? Let's see the definition first. The Ng4 directive is used to iterate a list of items and then display them. If you know what is for loop, then it is like the same. Let me quickly show you in the code. See, in the app component, we have field array of student list with 2 students here, Harry and Happy. Now this component has this HTML template. Here we have this list item tag, and inside that we have written the syntax for Ng4 directive. This code will iterate every student inside the student list and then print the student. Do not worry about this double curly braces. This is interpolation data binding technique, which will send data from app component to this HTML view. I will discuss this in detail in data binding questions. Now let's see the output of this in the browser. See, here we have the list of students here. So this is the use and the short story of Ng4 directive. I hope you liked it, and if you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask. What is ng-switch structural directive? Let's see the definition first. ng-switch is an structural directive used in combination with ng-switch case and ng-switch default, and that both are also structural directives. If you are from Java C# background, then you already know how switch case works. If not, even then I will show you quickly in the code. So let's go to the code. See, same as ng4, here in the app component we have field array of student list with again 2 students here, Harry and Happy. Now in the HTML we will set the switch case like this. This ng-switch code will check the student list.length, which is the number of students present in the list. Right now we have 2 students in the list. So the ng-switch case equal to 2 case will be true. This condition will be true. Therefore the output will print the two students in the browser. Let me show you the same in the browser. See, the output is 2 students. So whatever condition of ng-switch case will be true, that output will be printed in the browser. Then what about this ng-switch default case? What is this? If none of the above ng-switch case are true, then this ng-switch default case will run. See, here we handled up to 2 students case, but if student numbers are 3, then this ng-switch default will execute and more students will be printed on the browser. So let me show you this. Let me add one more student, Rami, here. Now let's see the output in the browser. See, the output is more students in the browser. So that is because of this ng-switch default case. So ng-switch directive will display data on case-to-case basis. Whatever case is true will be executed. This is the story about the ng-switch directive. If you have any query, then please ask me in the comment section. What is ng-style attribute directive? Let's first recap the attribute directive definition. Attribute directive change the appearance or behavior of an element. Now here are the type of directives and then the type of attribute directives. We will only focus on ng-style directive in this question. So what is ng-style directive? ng-style is an attribute directive that updates styles for the HTML element. So this is the theory and one-line definition. Now let's see the code. See, this is the HTML template file of the component. Here we have a div and the style attribute. You remember the style attribute of HTML? Now this HTML style attribute will set the background color of the div to red, right? Let me show you in the browser. See, here it is. I am happy with red color background. Now the ng style can also do the same thing. This is the code for ng style. The code format will be like this. Ng style in square brackets and the attribute setting will be in the curly brackets. But the output will be the same in the browser. See, both the outputs are same. Now going back to the code. The thing is now why we need ng style over style attribute. What is the benefit of ng style over style attribute? The reason is because style, this is an static implementation. This what we are doing until now is a static implementation, and in real-time projects, the attribute assignment will be dynamic, meaning something will be received in app-component.ts file, and based on that we have to set the style here in the HTML file. Let me show you by setting the style property in TS file. See, if this is the code and we will know color name at runtime from component.ts file, then we have to set this color name something like this, like red in here in the component file. And then we have to pass this color name to the HTML file, and HTML file should be able to detect this color name. So that is possible with the help of ng-style directive like this. Here is the code. Here you are setting the color dynamically. This is the benefit of ng-style over normal HTML style attribute. So similarly, we can assign multiple attributes for ng-styles also, like this. So this is the short story of ng-style. Now we will cover the next directive, which is ng-class, and that is one step above ng-style. So let's see that in the upcoming question. What is ng-class attribute directive? We already covered attribute directive definition, then ng-style definition, and now we will cover ng-class definition. ng-class directive adds and removes CSS classes on an HTML element. Remember CSS classes. If you know how CSS class are set in HTML, then it is going to be very easy for you. Let me show you the same in the code. So now we already know this code inside app component HTML file, right? This is ng-style directive I have already explained in earlier questions. Now normally in a good and big project, we do not set properties values like this. Instead of this, we use CSS classes. That is the more right and cleaner way. Same here, we will use ng-class directive instead of ng-style. Let me paste the code which I have already copied. See, this is the code of ng-class. See, this is more simpler than ng-style. All of these properties are replaced by a single word class name. Now what is this class name? Right now it is showing error. For resolving this error, we have to set this in app component TS file, as we have set this in this for ng-style color name, similar to this only. Let me set it. I will remove the command and it is set now. Class name equal to red white class. This red white class is the CSS class which we have to set in the CSS file. Let me open the component CSS file and set this. See, here we have this red white class set as background color red and font color is white. Now if we will check the HTML template file, then the short story is ng-class directive is adding this CSS class in the div HTML with the help of app component and the component CSS file. So that is the single and short story of this ng-class directive. And now let me show you the output in the browser. See, the background color is red and the font color is white, which is as per the CSS class red white class. So this is the answer of this question. If you have any queries about this question, then please ask me in the comment section. Now let's do a recap of directives with differences question, because differences are the favorite questions of interviewers. What is the difference between component, attribute and structural directives? Let's see the first difference. The first difference is component directive is responsible for showing the first view of the component. It is the most used one. See, this is the component directive and here is the template attached to it. If you will remove this component directive, then the first view of component will not be displayed, and that's why it's the most used one. Then, structural directive is responsible for adding and deleting HTML elements in the view displayed by the component directive. And at last, attribute directive is responsible for changing the appearance of view by adding or removing style CSS classes of the HTML elements. So all the three directives are related to each other by helping each other in creating a good and editable component. Next difference is about representation. Component directive starts with @ like @component. Structural directive starts with * like *ngif, *ng4 and *ng-switch. And then attribute directive set inside square brackets like *ng-class, ng-style. So this is the quick answer of this question. If you have any question, then please ask me in the comment section. Now we will cover questions from another popular interview topic, which is decorator and pipes. And here is the list of the questions which we are going to cover. So let's start with the first questions of decorator. Here is the question. What is decorator? This is a very important question. Let's see the simplest definition which you can tell to any interviewer. Angular decorators store metadata about a class, method or property. Now what is metadata? Metadata is data that provides information about other data. For example, suppose you have a book. Then things like author name, title, price, publisher, etc. all these information about the book is metadata only. Meaning it is giving you information about the book, but it is not the main content or data of the book. This is metadata. Similarly, here we have this component file. Now the main logic and data of this component file will be inside this class app component class, right? But the information like selector is a metadata. Similarly, template URL and style URLs will be the metadata. So decorator store all the metadata of the component. Similarly, in module case, it is @ng module decorator which stores all the metadata like declarations, imports, providers, bootstrap. I hope now you understand what is metadata and what is decorator. One more thing about Angular decorator is all decorators are represented with @ symbol. So this is all about this question. If you have any queries, then my name is Happy. You can ask me any question. What are the types of decorator? Let's see quickly. We have 4 types of decorators: class decorators, property decorators, method decorators and parameter decorators. Now this class decorator is just a category. The actual decorators are @ng module and @component. These are the actual decorators. Here in the diagram, the decorators which are in bold words are the important ones, so you can remember them. The rest are not so important and they are slightly complex also to understand, so we will cover them in upcoming questions. One thing you noticed about the decorators that all these decorators start with @ only. This is the short story of this question. What are pipes in Angular? Here is the simplest definition. Pipes are simple functions which accept an input value and return a transformed value. We have two categories of pipes: built-in pipes, which are provided by Angular framework, and then custom pipes, which you can develop on your own and then you can use at many places in your application. And here are all the types of built-in pipes in Angular. Let me show you the example code of lowercase pipe and uppercase pipe. See, this is the code of component file. Here we have set a field title equal to pipe example. Now if we see the HTML template file, then we used this string interpolation to bind data from component to HTML template file. So the first line is the normal one. Then to convert this line to lowercase characters, we will use pipe like this, and the output you can see here in the browser. Similarly, we can use upper pipe like this. So this is how the pipe is accepting some input and then transforming it. Now next part is parameterized pipes. When we pass any parameters to the pipes, it is called parameterized pipes. Let me show you this with the help of currency pipe. Here we already have these previous pipes. Now let me put the currency code here. See, now this amount will be converted into dollar currency, as by default dollar is the currency. But suppose we have to convert this number to INR currency. For that we will pass a parameter like this in the code after the colon, and then that will be transformed value will be the INR. So this here you can see the output, one is dollar and one is INR. So this is the benefit of parameterized constructor. It will give you more specific result. This is the answer of this question. If you have any query, then please ask me. What is chaining pipes? The chaining pipes use multiple pipes on a data input. Like this. See, we have multiple pipes here. First, date pipe converting date of birth to date format, and then second uppercase pipe converting date format in uppercase. Let me show you this in the code. This is the previous component code. Let me put my date of birth here. Then in HTML template file, I will put the chaining pipes like this. Now here in the browser you can see the first pipe transformed the input data into the date format, and then the second pipe converted the string to the uppercase letters. So this is the short and simple chaining pipes. Now we will cover some important questions which are not a part of a particular topic. And here are the questions which we are going to cover. So let's start with the first question. Here is a very short question. Where to store static files in Angular project? Sometimes interviewers ask this kind of one-word answers also. And the one-word answer is inside the assets folder of the Angular project. There we store the static files like images. Now let's go to the next question. What is the role of Angular.json file in Angular? This is again a quick answer question. Let's explore. The Angular.json file is the primary configuration file for an Angular project. So it contains all the important file links in it. See here the assets links, favicon, index.html, main.ts, polyfills.ts, styles.scss. All files of the projects are registered inside this Angular.json file. So like you have a index in the book, similarly this file is like the index of the Angular project. So this is the short answer of this question. Here is the question. What is the difference between JIT and AOT in Angular? This is a very good question from interview perspective. Let's explore the answer. Yes, we know this. Both JIT and AOT are used to compile Angular TypeScript components to JavaScript because browser understands JavaScript only, not TypeScript, right? So what is the difference? The difference is JIT, which stands for Just-in-Time Compiler, compiles your application in the browser at runtime. Remember runtime. And this was the default compiler for Angular until Angular 8. Whereas AOT, which stands for Ahead of Time Compiler, compile your applications and libraries at build time. Remember again, build time. And this is the default starting in Angular 9. Any application first builds and then it runs on the browser, or I can say first it is build and then run. Right now AOT is the default and preferred way for Angular compilation. Now let me show you the example that how JIT compiles at runtime and AOT compiles at build time. See, here in the Angular component we have this title field, and then we have this interpolation at HTML template file. Now in the component file I will comment this title field, and now I will build the application by writing ngserve in the terminal and press enter. See, it has thrown the error because by default this Angular application is set to AOT compilation, and while compiling by AOT, the build has identified that there is an error in the application. In a way, it is good for developer that he knows in advance that there is a build error and the project is not good for deployment. Now we will change this default AOT compilation to JIT compilation in this Angular project. For that, go to angular.json file, and there is a development property under build property. Here we will set AOT equal to false. This will disable AOT compilation and enable JIT compilation. Now let's stop the project by pressing Ctrl C. Then type ngserve again and press enter. And see, the result is compiled successfully because right now the active compiler is JIT, and JIT will compile at runtime, and therefore it will not detect any error at build time. So that is the difference between JIT compiling and AOT compiling. JIT compile at runtime and it will not be able to detect failures at build time, and AOT compiled at build time, therefore it is able to detect errors at build time only. This is the answer of this question. If you have any queries about this question, then I will be very happy to answer, as my name is Happy. Now we have completed all the 30 Angular interview questions. In the next mini course, I will cover some more interview questions on Angular. The topics will be routing, observable, Angular services, HTTP interceptors, dependency injection, and Angular lifecycle hooks. If you want this mini course, then write "Hey Mukambo" in comment section, and please press like and subscribe button. At the end, good luck for your interview, do your best and never ever give up. All the best for your career from my side. Thank you.